How's it going, everyone? You ever get that feeling like you're being watched? That someone or something is just outside your door, lurking in the shadows? Today, I'm going to tell you about scary, dark, and creepy stories related to such a simple thing as a doorbell recording. That little chime, that notification on your phone, it seems so mundane, right? But what you're about to hear, what you're about to see, will change the way you look at that blinking light forever. Every such recording is a story, and not always with some kind of ending. We're diving headfirst into a world shrouded in darkness, where the familiar becomes frightening, and the safety of our homes feels a million miles away. Let's go. Our first story takes us to a quiet cul-de-sac, a place where kids play on sidewalks and neighbors wave to each other. The Smith family, they thought they had found their forever home, but they were wrong. It started subtly, a chime in the dead of night. They brushed it off as kids messing around, a prank, but then it happened again. And again. John Smith, the father, he decided to check the doorbell camera, and that's when things took a turn. Standing on their porch, barely visible in the grainy footage, was a figure. Tall, shrouded in shadow, its face obscured. John hit rewind, played it back. The figure just stood there, motionless. No knock, no attempt to ring the bell, just watching. Night after night, the figure returned. Always the same, standing silently on their porch. The Smiths, they tried everything. They called the police, but with no evidence of a crime, their hands were tied. They even installed brighter lights, hoping to scare the intruder away, but nothing worked. The figure, it seemed, was always one step ahead. One night, amidst the fear and paranoia, John decided he couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed his baseball bat, told his family to stay put, and went to confront the stranger on his porch. He threw open the door, adrenaline pumping, ready for anything. But there was no one there. The porch was empty. John checked the street, the bushes, everywhere. Nothing. He raced back inside and rewound the footage from the doorbell camera. There it was, the figure, clear as day. But this time, something was different. As John reached the porch in the video, the figure turned its head, as if looking directly at the camera, directly at John, and then it vanished, like it was never there at all. The Smiths, they moved out shortly after that. They couldn't explain what they had seen, couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. To this day, they still get chills every time they hear a doorbell ring. Our next story takes us to the bustling city, a place where anonymity thrives. Sarah, a young woman living alone, she always felt safe in her high-rise apartment, until she didn't. It began with a feeling, a prickling at the back of her neck, like she was being watched. She brushed it off as city nerves, the constant hum of life outside her window. But then, her doorbell camera notified her of motion. It was 3 a.m. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she clicked on the notification. The footage sent a shiver down her spine. A translucent figure, barely discernible from the night air, was floating outside her door. It had a vaguely human shape, but its edges blurred, almost like it was vibrating at a different frequency. Sarah rubbed her eyes, convinced she was imagining things. But when she looked back at the footage, the figure was still there. It hovered for a moment, then drifted towards her door, passing right through the solid wood. Sarah was paralyzed with fear. She had heard stories, whispers of the supernatural, but she never thought she would witness it firsthand. Night after night, the phantom visitor returned. Always at 3 a.m., always floating through her door. Sarah tried to rationalize it, a trick of the light, a glitch in the camera, anything but what she was seeing. But deep down, she knew. This was something else entirely. One night, Sarah decided she couldn't live with the fear any longer. She grabbed her phone, dialed 911, and threw open her apartment door, ready to confront whatever awaited her. But just like the Smiths, she found nothing. The hallway was empty, the only sound the distant hum of the city that never sleeps. Sarah showed the footage to the police, to her landlord, to anyone who would listen. But they all dismissed it. A hoax, a prank, a figment of her imagination. But Sarah knew what she had seen, and the fear, it never truly left her. To this day she sleeps with the lights on, haunted by the memory of the phantom visitor who passed through her door. Chapter 3. The Creepy Clown. Imagine this. You're at home, maybe making dinner, when suddenly your doorbell rings. You're not expecting anyone, so you decide to check the camera. And there, standing on your porch, is a clown. Not just any clown, mind you, but a creepy clown. The kind that sends shivers down your spine. That's exactly what happened to the Thompson family. It was a Friday night, and they were settling in for a movie night. The doorbell rang, and 10-year-old Emily ran to see who it was. But when she looked at the camera feed on the tablet, she screamed. Standing on their porch in full clown regalia was a figure that could only be described as nightmare fuel. The clown's face was painted in a grotesque parody of a smile, its eyes two black voids staring into their home. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, its presence radiating an aura of menace. The Thompsons were terrified. They huddled together in the living room, whispering frantically about what to do. The father, Mark, considered confronting the clown, but something about its stillness, its unwavering gaze, filled him with a primal fear. Minutes turned into an eternity as the clown remained on their porch. Emily was in tears, her parents trying desperately to comfort her. They called the police, but due to the non-violent nature of the situation, there was a delay in response. Finally, after what felt like hours, the clown twitched. It took a slow, deliberate step back from the door and turned its head, as if looking at something down the street, and then, it was gone, vanished, without a trace. The police arrived shortly after, but they found no sign of the clown. The Thompsons were left shaken, their sense of security shattered. They never found out who the clown was or why it targeted their home, but one thing's for sure, they'll never look at clowns the same way again. Chapter 4. The Unseen Knocker. This next story is short, but it's one that'll stay with you. It happened to an elderly woman named Mrs. Peterson. She lived alone, in a quaint little house on the edge of town. One day her doorbell started ringing incessantly. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, over and over again. Mrs. Peterson, she was a kind soul, but she was also cautious, so she did what anyone would do, she checked her doorbell camera. But when she looked at the feed, her blood ran cold. The porch was empty, there was no one there. Yet the doorbell continued to ring. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Mrs. Peterson tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was kids playing a prank, maybe it was a malfunctioning button, but deep down, a knot of dread twisted in her stomach. The relentless ringing continued for days. Mrs. Peterson called an electrician, but they couldn't find anything wrong with the wiring. She even contacted the doorbell company, but they assured her there were no reported glitches. The constant ding-donging was driving her mad. It was as if something unseen was toying with her, mocking her inability to stop it. Sleep became impossible. Her nerves were shot. Finally, Mrs. Peterson couldn't take it anymore. She packed a bag, left a note for her neighbor, and moved out. To this day, the house remains unoccupied. Locals say you can still hear the faint sound of a doorbell ringing in the dead of night. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Chapter 5. The Midnight Screams. Our final story takes us to a small town nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering forests. The Miller family, they were new in town, eager to start a fresh chapter in their lives. But their new beginning soon turned into a nightmare. It started subtly, a feeling of unease that settled over their home after dark. They brushed it off as new house jitters, the creaks and groans of an old Victorian. But then, one night, their doorbell camera picked up something truly terrifying. It was past midnight, the streetlights casting long, eerie shadows. The Millers were sound asleep when a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. Jolted awake, hearts pounding, they scrambled to check the camera. What they saw sent chills down their spines. The footage showed their front yard, bathed in the eerie glow of the streetlights. And then, it happened again. A scream, even more chilling than the first, ripped through the silence. It was a sound of pure terror, raw and primal. The Millers watched in horror, unable to tear their eyes away from the screen. The screams continued, each one more desperate than the last. Frantically, they called the police, their voices trembling as they described the horrifying sounds. But when the police arrived, they found nothing. No sign of a struggle, no indication of who or what could have made those blood-curdling screams. The Millers were left terrified, haunted by the sounds that echoed through their home. They installed security cameras, floodlights, even hired a security company to patrol their property. But the screams returned. Night after night, the unseen terror tormented them. Their once peaceful home transformed into a prison of fear. To this day, the Millers live with the chilling memory of those midnight screams, a constant reminder that some things cannot be explained, only endured. These are just a few of the terrifying stories captured by doorbell cameras. The ones that make you question everything you thought you knew about safety and security. Remember, sometimes the scariest things are right outside your door. So the next time you hear that familiar ring, That notification on your phone? Take a moment to think. Think about the stories we've shared, the mysteries that remain unsolved, and ask yourself, what would you do if you were in their shoes? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more creepy stories. And as always, thanks for watching.